Hi guys, welcome back to my channel. In today's video I'm going to be doing the history of my bookshelf tag. I really felt like doing like a bookshelf scavenger hunt challenge kind of thing, but I thought I'd do this one that was created by Emma Books last year because it's more recent and it's more chatty, whereas the other ones are kind of more challenge-like, if that makes sense. For this there are 26 questions, but it kind of prompts you to talk about your experience with those books, so I will also leave the original video link down below for you to go check out. You can't actually see all of my bookshelves because they're too tall and I'm not showing them all. If you see my best and worst books on my bookshelf video that I made like 2 months ago, 3 months ago maybe, I don't know when I made that. If you've seen that video you will have seen it on my bookshelf. For now you're just going to see this little bit and then I'll just be grabbing from various places. I'm just going to dive straight in. The first question is the oldest book on your bookshelf. I already know what this is, I think, and that is Cloudbusting by Malorie Blackman. I've had this book for about 10 years, maybe over that. Let me check actually. Oh wait, I've had this for 15 years. I've had this for ages. It's completely yellow, it's ripped in loads of places, it's a mess. This was my favourite book when I was younger. I used to read it all the time, like every night I would read this book. It's a book told in verse that follows a friendship between two boys, an unlikely friendship, and it's pretty great. The next question is a book you read in 2013. I'm just gonna look behind me and grab the first one that I see that I know I read in 2013 because I read a lot of books in 2013. The first one that I saw is actually directly behind me, and that is Land of Stories, The Wishing Spell. This is the first book. It's by Chris Colfer. I read this because I was obsessed with Glee. When he came out with this book I was like, I have to read it, I have no choice, I will read it. And I did, and I really enjoy this series. It's a lot of fun. If you like magical, whimsical, middle grade books, you will love this series. The next question is a book you read in 2014. Honestly, I'm not sure. Not many books from 2014 stand out to me actually, but I'm just gonna look to see which ones I did read in 2014. The only book I can think of that I definitely read in 2014 is Landline by Rae Morrell. This came out in 2014. She did a UK book tour for it. I met her, that's why I remember when this came out, because I met her in 2014. This is an adult fiction book, kind of romance, but not really. It's more like women's fiction kind of thing, about a marriage that's failing, and I enjoyed it, but I don't remember anything about it because I haven't read it since 2014, though I do want to reread it. The next question is a book you read in 2015. I'm gonna go grab a very specific book because I want to talk about that one. And that is The Sin Eater's Daughter by Melinda Salisbury. 2015 for me was the year I discovered UKYA, mainly with this book. I read a lot of UKYA before this, but this kind of solidified my love for the genre. I love this series, it's one of my favourites. I really need to do a reread. I want to do like a rereading vlog kind of thing because it's such a big part of my life. This is such a big part of my reading life, but I haven't read them since they came out and I need to reread them. The next question is a book you read in 2016. Again, 2016 doesn't stand out to me as a book that I read a lot, but I'm pretty sure this book came out in 2016, let me go check. It did come out in 2016, and that is Lady Midnight by Cassandra Clare. Cassandra Clare has like one book release every year, like I could pick her for any of these. My reading experience for Lady Moonlight was really unique because I got it as a proof copy and I got it a couple of months before it actually came out. I think maybe 2 months before. I wasn't allowed to talk about it, I wasn't allowed to share my opinions, I wasn't allowed to say anything, but I read it and I was like freaking out inside because it was so good. The next question is a book you read in 2017. I honestly didn't read a lot in 2017. It's probably the worst reading year I've had since joining the book world. I think I only read like 50 books and most of them were pretty mediocre, but I can think of one like really big standout book that I'm gonna go pick up. That book is The Hate You Give by Angie Thomas. This came out in 2017. I have 2 copies of this book. I have my UK proof and then this movie edition. I really love this book. Like the rest of the book world, it's just absolutely fantastic. It deserves all the love it gets, and honestly it's really necessary, especially now. The next question is a book that you read in 2018. I remember my top 3 from 2018 very vividly, I don't know why, and one of them is very close to me right now, so I'm just gonna go pick that up. And that book is Noughts and Crosses by Malorie Blackman. I only read this series in 2018, I was really late to the game, but it was so good. I absolutely adore this series. I understand why it's so loved. It does have a few issues, but it was published in 2005, so like I feel like I can forgive some of it for that. But overall this book is so important and what it says, and the TV show adaptation is also great. So we have our final year question, and that is a book you read in 2019. I'm going to pick up my favourite book of 2019 because I want to keep talking about it. and that is American Royals by Katharine McGee. This is such an underloved book, and I don't know why, because everyone I know who's read this loves this book. It's honestly addictive. It's really unique. I love the whole idea with the 4 women's lives intertwining with each other, and it's just like such a great book. Cannot wait for the sequel. It comes out so soon. It's like just over a month away, and I'm ready, basically. The next question is a book that you've read more than once. I've read loads of books multiple times. I tend to reread some of my favourites quite a lot. I recently did a whole Alice Oseman reread. I reread all of her books. I have a whole vlog for that, which you can go check out on my channel. But I feel like for this, I have to pick the book that I have reread the most. And if you know me at all, you know that that will be Fangirl by Rae Morrell. I have read this book so many times. I read it constantly. It's like a little comfort for me. The same way a lot of people rewatch movies, I also rewatch comfort movies. But this, whenever I'm feeling sad, I can go to this book and it just fills my heart with joy, basically. The next question is a book you waited over a year to be published. I have waited long times for a lot of books, but there's one that comes to mind as I think the book I've waited the longest for. And that book is Chain of Gold by Cassandra Clare. It was always going to be a Cassandra Clare book for this answer. We knew that this book was coming since 2013. I'm not sure if we knew about it before then, because I only read The Infernal Devices in 2013. But this only got published this year, so I've waited 7 years for this book. It just kept getting pushed back because other books were being prioritised, and I totally understand that, because I think reading this after having read all those other books, it makes sense. But this was so worth the wait, honestly. It was just fantastic. I love The Infernal Devices. I love anything related to it, and this is related to it, so. The next question is a book that you read away from home or on vacation. I don't actually go on vacation that much, but I did go to Italy earlier this year and I read one book while I was there, so I'm just gonna get that one. And that is Of Curses and Kisses by Sandy Menon. I read this in Italy in January. I mainly read it on the planes because I didn't really read much when I was in Italy. I wasn't that big a fan of this book. I really love most of her other books. I kind of tend to alternate, but this one was okay, but I think it kind of disappointed me in ways. The next question is a book that you got from a special place that's not your local retailer or an online bookstore. I tend to get my books from those 2 places. I think the only like special place that I've got books from is Illumicrate. I have quite a few Illumicrate editions, so I'm just going to pick the first one that I see. And the first one that I saw is Descendant of the Crane by Joan He. I actually didn't know much about this book before I got it in the Illumicrate, but I decided to read it straight away as soon as I got it, and I actually really liked it. I thought it was really underrated. I don't really enjoy YA fantasy that much anymore, but like this was really unique, and it was a standalone YA fantasy, which we never get. I don't see many people recommending this book, and I don't really know why, because it seems like something that a lot of people would love. The next question is a book that made you cry. I never cry in books. I never have. I don't know why, like books just never make me cry. I kind of need to see something to cry. I need like the visual. The book that brought me the closest to tears was Clockwork Princess by Cassandra Clare. There's a specific part that's around halfway through this book that honestly, if I did cry in books, would make me bawl my eyes out. I had to like close it and like stop and think, and that's like the closest I've ever got to crying in a book. So the next question is a book that you read in one sitting. I used to do this quite a lot. I used to read books all the time in one sitting. Back in 2013, when I first discovered YA books, I would literally just sit there until 3 AM and read a book every day. That's how crazy I was. There is one series in particular that reminds me of this prompt every time, and that is The Selection by Kiera Cass. Every single one of these books, each 5 of them and all of the novellas, I have read in one sitting, every single one. I stay up really late to finish these because they're just so addictive, and they're really short, so they don't take that long anyway. They're so fun. These are like my guilty pleasure reads. I adore them. The next question is a book that was a gift. I actually don't tend to get books as gifts. People just kind of give me money for or vouchers because they know that I have a lot of books, so buying me a book is quite hard. However, back in 2018 we did a Secret Santa in my uni group. It had to be books, and one of my friends got me, and she bought me Aristotle and Dante Discover the Secrets of the Universe. She said she had a really hard time finding a book that I wanted to read that I didn't already own, which is fair because I tend to buy books that I want to read. I've since read this book and I liked it. Didn't really love it as much as I was expecting to because the hype was insane, but I still did like it. So the next question is a book that you read before owning. I actually did this with a lot of books, probably like half the books that I have. I have this really bad habit of reading a book on my Kindle and then buying it physically. I used to only do this with books that I loved, but then I got to the point where I kind of want every book I've ever read and I want to own it. So I actually spend money on books that I've already read and that I didn't quite like, and I don't really understand why I do that. However, I do have an example of one that I read from the library first and then bought a physical copy rather than buying it on my Kindle and then buying a physical copy. And that is I've Got Your Number by Sophie Kinsella. When I went to my local library for the first time in ages back in 2013 or 14, I got this book out. It was the first time I'd been since I was a child, and I read it and I really enjoyed it. A couple of years later I bought this from a charity shop, I think it was. I tend to buy a lot of my Sophie Kinsella books from a charity shop, so yeah. This is one of my favourite adult books and I really need to reread it because I've since got addicted to adult romance, so I want to see how this lives up to all the other ones. The next question is a book that you lent to someone else. I actually don't lend my books out. I think I used to. I used to lend my books out to a lot of people, but then I kind of stopped. I'm going to try and find one that I've actually lent out because I never do. I have memories of lending this book out, so I'm pretty sure I did, and that's Clockwork Angel by Cassandra Clare, back when I read this in 2013. Again, I read this on my Kindle and then bought the physical copies because of course I had to, and now I have like 6 physical copies of it. But yeah, I'm pretty sure I lent this out to a friend, if I remember correctly. The next question is a book that you own that's damaged. I have one book that comes to mind specifically for this and it's right behind me, so I'm just gonna grab it. And that book is Mockingjay. When I was reading this, I was in school and I completely destroyed it. Like there's like creases everywhere, the spine's really badly cracked. But I also spilled a whole raw egg all over it. Don't ask me how because it's kind of ridiculous. But you can kind of see it there. I was still reading it as well and it ripped some of the pages. The main pages that were ripped and couldn't be read were the acknowledgements, so it was fine. For a long time this was my only copy of Mockingjay. I was going to buy a new one. I only bought new editions last year, so... This book does, however, mean a lot to me because of its memories of me cracking an egg all over it. The next question is a book that you got on sale or discounted. I actually end up getting quite a few books on sale or discounted. I tend to buy some books from supermarkets, which are always like 2 for £7. I also tend to get books from the works, which are like box sets for like £10. And then I get a lot of books from charity shops because I always go and donate books to charity and then also buy some for myself because that's what I do. One that I know I got from charity is Goodbye Perfect. This is like a slightly battered version of it. Again, this is a book I read on Kindle, didn't have a physical copy, but then I bought a physical edition from the charity shop. However, after that, I also bought a box set of her 3 books from The Works, which was like £7 or £8 for these 3. She has since released a new book, which I don't own. I have read it, but I don't own it. So I have 2 copies of Goodbye Perfect, and they're both discounted sale books, so. The next question is a book that you read with someone else, either as a buddy read or as part of a book club. I'm gonna go pick up my most recent book club read, and that is The Gravity of Us by Phil Stamper. Me and 2 of my uni friends decided to start a YA book club. I've read it, they haven't read it yet. We were meant to read it in June. I did, they haven't. It's now end of July, early August when you're seeing this, so. I somewhat enjoyed this book. I was kind of disappointed by it. I wanted more from it and I expected more. The next question is a book you associate with a song. I actually am not sure about this because I don't really listen to music while I read. I used to do it all the time, but I don't really tend to do it anymore, so I'm gonna try and see if there's any, but I'll see. Yeah, I failed. The closest I can think of is Matilda because every time I think of this or read it, I think of the soundtrack to the musical. That's not a specific song, that's literally all of them. Particularly When I Grow Up, Naughty and Revolting Children are my 3 favourites, so. The next question is a book you associate with a food. Again, I don't eat while I read. I tend to sometimes actually, now that I think about it. I have popcorn while I'm reading on my Kindle, but I don't really associate a lot of books with food. Let me just double check though. The closest I can think of is associating When Dimple Met Rishi with coffee, but I don't drink coffee and I don't particularly care for it, but that's the closest I can think of. The next question is a book that you got years ago that you probably wouldn't get now, and I know exactly what this is. And that for me is A Court of Thorns and Roses, or really any Sarah J Maas book. I just don't care about her books. I have since realised that they're kind of problematic and I stopped enjoying them even before I realised that. So yeah, it especially irritates me because I got a UK arc of this and then for some reason decided to also buy a finished copy and I don't know why. Next question is a book you associate with a specific time in your life. This is actually quite a lot. 2013 YA reads for me were like very particular for that time, so I'm just going to pick one of those. I decided to pick Shatter Me by Tahereh Mafi. Again, 2013 YA for me was like a big part of me, and me and my friends would always talk about this book at that time and talk about various things of it. I talked about books a lot more then than I do now. Like with my friends, we would always just have these discussions. It would be part of our daily conversations to like mention things related to these books, so. The next question is a book that you used to like but you don't like anymore. Again, I can use Sarah J Maas for this, but I've already talked about her, so I'm going to go pick up another one. For this, I'm going to pick up Eleanor and Park by Raymond Morrell. This is a book that I loved. It was the first YA contemporary book that I think I ever read, and I was obsessed with it. However, I reread it in 2017 or 16 and didn't really like it, and I now acknowledge all the problematic aspects of it, because the second time I read it, like, I couldn't unsee it and it was really annoying, and basically I don't like this book anymore and I don't recommend this book anymore. So the next question is the newest book on your shelf, and I'm going to talk about 3 because I bought 3 books together. One of them I've already talked about, and that is Of Curtains and Kisses by Sandy Meno. This is an example of a book that I didn't really like, but for some reason have bought a finished copy. Not sure why. The next book is the reason I went to go shopping at that point, and that is Love Lust by Alice Oseman. I really need to pick up a finished copy of this because it's one of my favourite books of the year. I actually think it is my favourite book of the year so far, so I really wanted to get a physical copy. The final book is the last book that I've read, and that is You Should See Me in a Crown by Leah Johnson. I loved this book. I had so much fun with it. It was great, it was hilarious, and honestly one of the best YA contemporaries of the year. So that was the history of my bookshelf challenge. I talked through some various different memories I have with books, and I showed you some of the books that are really memorable to me. If you've done this video, let me know down below. I'd love to go see it because I really love the concept of it, and I think it's a really great way to get to know someone and their bookish opinions. I hope you enjoyed this video, and I will see you in the next one.